Welcome to our weather impact report, where we took a look at the top weather stories here in Georgia and around the nation. I'm meteorologist Danielle Moss. Once again, it was a very busy weather week. Severe weather has been the main focus for multiple weeks, and it did not stop for the last week of May. Strong storms rolled through Sunday in Georgia, and it knocked down trees and power lines as well. Check out these pictures from Adairsville in Bartow County. It shows the damage on Sunday. You can see trees and limbs fell on I-75 northbound. Luckily, no one was hurt. Last week's bad weather also had significant impacts in the Mountain West. A massive funnel cloud was spotted churning across the New Mexico landscape on Sunday. Check out this video. The tornado was captured on cell phone video as a woman was driving in eastern New Mexico Sunday afternoon. Thankfully, there are no reports of major damage or injuries associated with the tornado. The National Weather Service conducted a survey and determined that even though it was large, it was only an EF1. Memorial Day was the last day of the 48th annual Atlanta Jazz Festival. It rained for most of the day, but it did not stop the crowds from enjoying the music. Grace King covered the last day of the free festival.
The smooth sound of jazz brought Stephen Hewitt up from Florida.
I love the ambience.
He says no amount of rain or mud could keep him from coming back.
We weathered the storm. You know, we're troopers. You got to be a trooper to carry the wagon a little bit from the parking, but it's well worth it because you're out here all day.
He and his sister Jackie got soaked on Sunday, but they returned today with raincoats and plastic wrap.
I live close, but I don't get the opportunity to come out here to Piedmont Park or participate in what goes on here in Atlanta, Georgia. And that's why we braved the rain and the mud and everything else today.
Some festival goers took a cue from the Hewitts with tents and rain gear, while others grabbed a seat up close.
It's going to be muddy, but I think this is an ideal spot that we have here. We got a good view.
And while the forecast each year may be unpredictable, the Hewitts say they can always count on good music and friendly fans.
But I love the Jazz Festival. It's the most wonderful place to come every year.
Tuesday was another day for severe weather in Georgia. In fact, 3 tornadoes were confirmed in North Georgia. 2 separate EF0 tornadoes touched down in Carroll County. There was also an EF1 tornado that touched down in Coweta County. 11 Alive's Gilad Malamed was on the ground in Coweta and Carroll counties as the National Weather Service, they surveyed that damage.
As crews clean up downed trees and debris in Noonan. Atlanta National Weather Service meteorologist in charge Keith Stellman.
It does look like the tree was a little bit older.
Works to determine what kind of tornado touched down here.
And then I hit check mark and it saves that point.
He focused on the area of Dart and Herring roads, which were blocked off yesterday due to downed trees. He says this is where the main damage is. County emergency officials gave him a bird's eye view. On the ground, Stellman plotted the damage to determine the tornado's path, width, and speed.
From that point up into here, we have debris spread. So that gives me a good indication of maybe how wide the tornado was.
Stellman says luckily this happened in a mainly industrial area, leading to less damage. It's at least the 4th tornado to touch down in our area since Sunday.
It's a little more unusual to see them this late in May, but it's not totally uncommon, and we can get them this time of year.
Though the storm has passed, Stellman says this work can help them in the future.
One thing it helps us do is it helps us learn, and it helps us better identify the tornadoes on radar.
Tuesday's 3 tornadoes takes the total count for the month of May to 13, and the week was not done yet. Those are all across the 11 Alive viewing area, which encompasses all of North Georgia and parts of eastern Alabama. Based on record keeping dating back to 1950, it also is the most confirmed tornadoes for the area in the entire month of May. It's been a busy spring for severe weather, and when tornado strikes, they often do it fast and with little to no warning. That's why more families are taking safety into their own hands, turning to personal storm shelters. I spoke with one Pike County family about why their storm shelter has provided a sense of relief. For Philip and Amy Baker, having their own storm shelter at home has been a game changer.
I am one of the thousands of people that have weather anxiety. And so when that warning comes out, we just grab everybody. It's chaotic. I mean, it's crazy. You know, kids might be crying because they're tired or they're hungry. I have an autistic son, so he might be throwing a fit. But we'll grab everybody and we'll get in there and we'll shut that thing, and we are just ready for anything at that point.
Pike County isn't new to tornadoes. In 2023, everything changed. On January 12th, a major outbreak swept across north and central Georgia, spawning 14 tornadoes. Pike County alone saw at least 4 separate tornadoes that day. And for many, the fear and anxiety still lingers. Pike County has only had 2 tornado warnings since the 2023 outbreak, and they were both this year. For the Bakers, this shelter has already proven its worth, especially during a rogue tornado warning for their county in April, which was 2 days before we spoke to the family and just north of their home.
We had seconds, and when we got in here, you could hear the wind and all, and the garage was moving, but I felt safe. I knew we were okay because this can withstand an EF5.
But not everyone has access to a personal storm shelter. Meteorologist and storm shelter advocate Dr. Craig Cece says that's a growing concern, especially in places like North Georgia where shelters are rare.
It's more challenging to deal with a very large metropolitan area to make a tornado shelter plan, but there is definitely the demand.
Storm shelters may not take away the fear, but they can offer something even more powerful: safety. Well, experts recommend planning ahead, whether it's installing a shelter at home or knowing exactly where you would go during severe weather. Imagine 2 tornadoes hitting your town in March and the debris still lining the streets in May. Well, that's the unfortunate reality that residents in Covington County, Mississippi are facing after the deadly tornadoes in March. They got the announcement last week that cleanup is now moving forward. The Covington County Emergency Management Agency began debris removal on Wednesday. President Donald Trump approved the request for individual and public assistance last week for several counties in Mississippi, and that opened the door for recovery to begin. People are cleaning up in Mississippi on Wednesday, but we were facing another round of severe weather right here in Georgia. The storms were not as strong as Tuesday's, but trees were the main issue. Unfortunately, a beloved grandfather died while protecting his granddaughters from a falling tree branch. His family is calling him a hero. The family says it happened last Wednesday, just days away from his birthday. 77-year-old Manuel was walking with the girls in the woods, checking on a baby deer they had found. That's when the family says a massive tree limb, estimated at 75 pounds, came crashing down, and he took the brunt of it.
He was like the best person I've ever known. Like before he died, he just told us to move away from the tree before the tree fell. Before the tree fell, he pushed us all the way.
His family says he was deeply connected to the outdoors. He hiked, biked, and even carved trails through those very same woods. Wednesday's storms caused major damage in Texas as well. A gas station in Austin was left mangled by powerful winds. You can see part of a large canopy collapse onto several cars. Winds also toppled trees and power poles. There are reports that wind gusts at the airport exceeded 75 miles per hour at the height of the storm. Heavy rain caused widespread flash flooding across San Antonio, Texas on Wednesday. The weather sent streams and rivers out of their banks and left a number of motorists stranded on roadways. At around 8 a.m., crews were dispatched to rescue a driver stuck in high waters just south of Loop 410. Earlier that morning, crews also rescued multiple vehicles stranded in high water on another major highway there. A rogue tornado in Henry County produced an EF2 on Thursday. One house fully torn apart, where the storm picked up a teen and threw him a couple hundred feet away. Residents say the daylight storm was an extraordinary and frightening thing to watch. Doug Richards was on the ground after the storm.
I'm always fascinated by heavy rain.
Curtis Bryant thought it was just another spring storm until he poked his head outside and saw the funnel.
You just see just like a funnel just move right on through like a vacuum cleaner.
It was crossing his neighbor's property.
I can't believe this is actually happening.
Bryant's house was undamaged. His neighbors up the street were much less fortunate.
So far we know it's a tornado.
Meteorologist Keith Stellman led a team from the National Weather Service into the neighborhood to document and classify the severity and the damage.
It's a little more than I was expecting in this one particular location, but tornadoes can do some really crazy things, especially once the wind gets in the house.
Stellman says much of their evidence comes from the damage done to trees, which have predictable breaking points during tornadic winds.
And so we use all of those tools to come up with and fine-tune into a wind speed.
As scientists work to define the strength of the storm, Brian says his eyes and ears told him all he needed to know.
I'm thinking never saw anything like that, only on TV.
But we're learning more about the 18-year-old who was thrown from his house in Henry County on that day during the tornado. Trey Chaney, an actor known for his role on HBO's The Wire, says his 18-year-old son, Malachi, is hospitalized and in critical condition. 11 Alive's Molly Oak shares his message of hope.
Man, cherish life as much as you can.
In a moment.
And my wall was coming towards my face, and my body levitated.
Life changed for Trey Chaney.
So I was yelling Malachi's name out. Malachi, where you at? But when I came from under the covers, this is what I seen.
He later learned his son was thrown 300 feet from their home.
My message, hug on your loved ones. Cause snap of a finger, it could be over with. I'm fortunate to still be alive to be able to talk.
Telling us Malachi is in the ICU with broken ribs and fractures in his face.
We experienced something tragic together that we'll always forever be able to look back on and say we overcame that. My son is he just finished his freshman year at Savannah State University. Sorry, y'all.
Knowing recovery, healing will take time.
He coming along, but the fact that he's in ICU, and I came away with just this scratch on my face, a bump on my head. I wish we could trade places.
Molly Oak, 11 Alive News.
The Chaneys have started a GoFundMe to rebuild their home that has already raised more than $10,000. You can find a link in this story on 11alive.com. Well, there was a lull in the weather for Georgia by Friday, but that was not the case for the people in Kentucky. This video shows the damage after a deadly tornado touched down in Washington County on Friday evening. The Washington County Sheriff says one person has died in the county and multiple people were injured. The Boyle County Fire Department said they got the first call for the damage around 7 a.m. on Friday morning. Several patients were in the ER following the storm. Now, you might have seen some of the hazy skies in Georgia this weekend and to start the week. It's all a part of the wildfire smoke coming in from Canada. We did not have an air quality alert from it, but it was noticeable. In Wisconsin, the Department of Natural Resources issued an air quality alert as Canadian wildfire smoke passed through the community. Community members, they still made their way outside on Friday despite the loom of the haze in the sky. Danielle Gomez shows us how some spent the first air quality alert of the season.
Familiar skies blow in from the north.
I woke up a little congested. It looks just a bit, more odd outside.
Let's get out and enjoy the warmer weather and the sunshine through the clouds.
Clouds of Canadian wildfire smoke, in fact. It's triggering an air quality alert from the Wisconsin DNR.
It's kind of strange just knowing this is from all the way from Canada. It's already hitting us.
It's a bit of an inconvenience for us.
Wildfire smoke can cause difficulty breathing for sensitive groups. Allergists say that's because fine particles can be found in wildfire smoke.
We have a few kids with asthma and stuff like that, so just making sure that they're feeling healthy.
Summer is, so precious in Wisconsin.
Dr. Mark Moss with UW Health says data shows respiratory-related visits to the emergency room or urgent care correlate with air quality issues. The trend of wildfire smoke in recent years is also something he hasn't seen in his career.
The other challenge right now is that this is also the time of year when we see very high pollen counts.
In the meantime, if you're a daycare worker,
make sure the air quality is good. Get them out as much as you can and make sure you've got a lot of activities if you need to stay inside.
Outside for work in general.
Take breaks as needed. Don't be afraid to, speak up if you're feeling congested. I remember last summer, there was times where I was like, wow, I just don't feel good.
Or just enjoying the day, sun up to sun down.
Hoping it doesn't keep going on like this. Beautiful sunsets, but hard on the lungs.
A northern Canadian town is under threat from those dangerous wildfires. Hundreds of residents have been forced to evacuate the area near Swain Hills in Alberta. The fire, fueled by extreme heat, low humidity, and strong winds, has already scorched more than 11,000 acres, and at last check, it was still growing. A state of emergency has been declared for the entire province, and a red flag watch is in effect. As of this Thursday, close to 50 wildfires were burning across the province, 24 of those classified as out of control. Authorities say the extreme weather is a challenge for firefighters battling the wildfires. And as we prepare for the start of hurricane season, there are growing concerns about whether FEMA is ready to respond after leadership changes and mixed signals. CNN's Leah Waldman has more.
I worry a lot about how thin the situation is and the ability to get information across during what could be a very active season.
Fears are churning over the preparedness of what's forecasted to be another active Atlantic hurricane season.
It only takes one, so we got to be prepared right now.
However, an internal memo obtained by CNN suggests that FEMA is not ready for the June 1st start to the season. Quote, as FEMA transforms to a smaller footprint, the intent for this hurricane season is not well understood. Thus, FEMA is not ready. President Donald Trump has criticized the agency for months, and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has vowed to eliminate it.
President Trump has given us the responsibility of looking at an agency that in the past has been there in times of crisis for many people on their worst day that they've ever experienced, but many times in the past it has failed.
With hurricane season imminent, multiple sources and an internal memo obtained by CNN show DHS is inserting more than half a dozen of its officials into key front office roles at FEMA, though they appear to have limited experience managing natural disasters, according to the officials' bios included in the announcement. Some experts are worried the shakeup at FEMA will harm the preparation, mitigation, and response after natural disaster strikes.
There have been a lot of cuts to, again, FEMA staffing and FEMA funding, and that's going to have impacts on the local emergency response.
In New York, I'm Lee Waldman.
Sunday marked the official start of hurricane season, and after last year's devastation from Helene, officials from Georgia's Department of Transportation say they are not taking any chances. Helene was the deadliest tropical cyclone to hit the U.S. since Katrina, and it left a lasting mark on Georgia. The storm caused 37 deaths and more than $5 billion in damage across the state. In fact, in parts of South Georgia, some communities are still cleaning up. GDOT says crews are already holding meetings and doing statewide dry runs and practice drills to test emergency response plans before a storm hits.
Making sure that we're prepared should we get hit again in Georgia, should we get not just hit in the coastal region or South Georgia, but we know how those storms can blow up through the middle of the state and cause flooding, down trees.
Officials say while Georgia usually sees storm impacts later in the season, the time to get ready is now. They're urging families to prepare a hurricane kit, know your evacuation route, and stay alert as the season gets underway. And we now have the first named storm of the Eastern Pacific hurricane season. It's Tropical Storm Alvin. The National Hurricane Center says the tropical depression strengthened to a tropical storm, thus earning a name. Alvin was 670 miles south of the southern tip of Baja California as of Thursday morning. The storm is not expected to reach hurricane intensity, and forecasters were hoping that it could bring rain into the drought-plagued southwestern U.S. The Eastern Pacific hurricane season started May 15th and uses a different list of names than the Atlantic hurricane season, which started on Sunday. Both seasons end November 30th. Well, you heard it. Hurricane season has officially kicked off. Now is a great time to make sure you have a plan in place for your family. Even though we are mostly inland, we saw how strong storms can get and the impacts of them with Hurricane Helene. So stay safe. With your weather impact report, I'm meteorologist Danielle Moss.